So actually, it started in graduate school, where I went to school for psychology, and they show you videos of all the different famous therapists, the modalities, Carl Jung, or Carl Rogers, all the people. And they showed us a video of this woman talking with someone who's just crying, super upset, and waving her finger in front of her face, and doing these sets of bilaterals, like a back and forth. And over the course of 10 minutes, you see the person talking about a very intense trauma that happened completely shift. At one point, they almost can't keep their eyes open. They're crying so much, their body language is down. And then they're like, oh, yeah, it happened, but it's not really bothersome. And I was like, what is this thing? And I like kind of like weird stuff. So I bookmarked it in my brain. And then
Shapiro,
when I,
right?
right, exactly. And so when I was still an intern, the opportunity for me to take the EMDR basic training. So I was watching Francine Shapiro do a session of EMDR therapy, is what it turns out that was. And so I was able to take the training, and it's kind of amazing. You get to see people move past these really intense, we can use the word trauma, but really it's any memory that when someone thinks about it now, oof, they can feel it, like they move past it. And it's not bothersome anymore. It doesn't disappear, but it becomes something that happened to them in the past and is not happening to them now. And so, my first case of using EMDR with someone was one of those ones where they got through the thing in just a few sessions, and it was pretty magical. And so it
Mhm.
hooked me in, and now it's, the thing I love.
hmm
Mm.
I remember seeing something about her too at the very beginning of when she was that therapy was coming out, and she talked about the bilateral stimulation coming from like one of the thoughts was when she started to invent it was she was standing in a grocery line and
Mm.
how somebody was holding their baby and just like rocking their baby back and forth. It reminds me of the
Yeah.
butterfly technique,
Yeah.
And
Yep.
so, and then the whole line was kind of like, going like that. And then
Mhm.
eventually, like everyone, instead of being like all like, stressed out in the line, like trying to hurry, everyone was
Yeah.
like kind of calmly going through the line and the baby calmed down and everyone
Oh,
was like,
interesting.
and so she came up with that idea about like this, just balancing the brain does so much to be able to help the brain process things. So,
Yes, and she actually has a second story about that. She
mhm.
actually calls like her main discovery of it her walk in the park.
Ah,
So she had actually had a cancer diagnosis, and she went for a walk in the park, and she was really, really upset. And this is the story that she tells, or told. She's passed now. So she was walking in the park, and she had a negative thought that was very intrusive and upsetting. And at the end of her walk, it wasn't as upsetting anymore. And she was trying to figure out what she was doing. And if you think, walking is a type of bilateral, but she
yep.
realized she was moving her eyes back and forth. And so then she started, testing it out basically on acquaintances.
I love that.
Yeah,
That because that is sort of one of the things outside in the world that we can do is kind of keep ourselves in this healthy place of like, the
absolutely.
back and forth processing our feelings and not just holding on to them. I
Mhm.
remember after seeing a day of clients, sometimes I'd sit in front of my house. One of the tricks that I learned in the EMDR thing was just putting my windshield wipers on
Yeah,
before I went into the house just to kind of like let go of the day.
so
And
good. Yep,
yeah, so those
exactly.
amazing things. So then what happened? So you got inspired with her, and then where did that go?
Yeah, then I just started using it with clients and saw lots of success. And so it's the main thing that I do with my clients. Most people come to me for EMDR therapy, but just like with everything, I weave in other modalities too, including parts work, and hypnosis, which I
Can
enjoy
you
as
talk about those two things that you just mentioned, like maybe the basics of EMDR?
well.
I mean, in a, in this kind of interview, not in a like a
Yeah,
basic training, but
yeah.
and then the other, but
I
like
can
what
go
would,
real deep, so I'll
yeah,
try to
yeah,
make
yeah.
it high level.
And what would go into parts work and hypnosis? Like, how would you weave those things, like just so that people
Yeah,
can hear those concepts a little bit?
absolutely.
Mhm.
So the premise behind EMDR is that when something not good happens to us and it doesn't get processed, it gets stuck in our brain and body. And then something else similar happens, and then that gets stuck. And we build this foundation that causes our triggers and our challenges in the present. And so in EMDR, we go through and we discover, I always say I'm like a memory discoverer, where we try to figure out how this foundation was built, and then we start reprocessing those memories. And to reprocess a memory, your therapist will ask you a few questions about it. And then apply a type of bilateral. So it could be an eye movement, it could be tapping, or it could be auditory. A lot of the research is with the eye movements. And so that's, I think, one of the most common ones. And you reprocess the memory. And so you do these sets of bilaterals on this memory across multiple sessions. And it shifts the charge. So all the components of the memory, the negative images, the negative thoughts about yourself, emotions, any body sensations, they start to shift. And it doesn't erase the memory, but it makes it so that when you bring up that memory, there's no charge to it anymore. It's just a thing that happened in the past.
Mm.
And
Mm.
so, depending how many memories you have, you can kind of imagine how
And
long therapy can take, but it can be really powerful for that.